and the Pope sent his military advisor, Laparelli, to create a new fortified city. In 1566, Valletta's first stone was laid down. Valletta was built on a grid pattern so that an approaching enemy could be seen from all sides through the intersecting streets. It was conceived as a model Renaissance town, the first one in the world. All houses came with a water tank and a sewer, and all the facades were designed by an architect according to the city plan. Valletta became one of the finest examples of urban architecture in the world, the model town visited by scores of Europeans who came to admire its futuristic design and to affirm their allegiance with the powerful order. 6 years later, in 1571, the Order's fleet, together with warships from Austria, Italy, and Spain, won a decisive victory at the naval battle of Lepanto, effectively shattering Turkish maritime power in the Mediterranean. The Battle of Lepanto shifted control of the Mediterranean from the Turkish fleets to Christian ships, and the Spanish kingdom was free to concentrate on northern Europe. The reports of valor at Lepanto made the knights legendary figures. The standard-bearer, Herrera, dropped the flag only when he was nearly sliced in half, losing his arm and all of his shoulder, and survived to tell the story. Hundreds of young noblemen flocked to the order in search of glory and adventure. Malta became a busy and freewheeling city. The Grand Master Cassier asked the Pope to appoint an inquisitor to stem Protestant ideas, but also very likely to slow down the debauchery in Valletta. The Church of St. John was embellished with the help of some of the best sculptors and painters of the time. Knights were buried under the inlaid marble floors, and the Grand Masters built ornate tombs to themselves to impress posterity. The Grand Master's palace in Valletta was a princely residence that rivaled the best in Europe. The Tongues also built their great palaces. The tongue of Provence, the tongue of Aragon, and the tongue of Italy vied with one another in building larger and more sumptuous mansions. By the beginning of the 17th century, Malta had become a great economy built on the public works of the order, including the military fortifications, the great hospitals, and a complex administrative and legal system. The development of a larger and more powerful fleet, however, made the Corso, the privateering against Moslem ships and towns, by far the biggest source of revenue for 2 centuries. From the earliest days, the Hospitallers had a strong link to the sea. From the earliest ships called dromones that ferried pilgrims to Jerusalem, they developed the galleys, the warfare ships that fought the Moslem ships a century later. The loss of the Holy Land forced them to trade the horse for the ship and to rely on a fleet as the main combat weapon. The carrack, a supply ship with 3 to 4 masts, was being used to supply the galleys, which conducted the attacks. Turkish galleys were taken over with their crew intact, and once the knight's flag was hoisted, they were ready to attack other Turkish ships. By the middle of the 15th century, so many Turks were captive that most of the rowers on the knight's galleys were Turkish slaves, making compulsory military service among the Christian forces obsolete. The Navy of the Religion, as it was called, was the most formidable fleet of the time. The order commissioned the largest ship in the world from a Nice shipyard. The Santa Ana boasted a metal bottom and gun decks with 50 cannons. This unsurpassed galley was soon copied by France as the model for their fleet. By the 18th century, the order provided the premier naval academy for all the major European fleets, including France, the Papal States, and Russia. And Catherine the Great commissioned the knight Giulio Lita to create a fleet for the Baltic. To fight the Barbary corsairs, the order, under papal approval, instituted the Corso. The Corso was a private enterprise like no other. Entrepreneurs acquired letters of marque, which entitled them to sail under the flag of the order, attack any Muslim ship, confiscate it and its contents, and take the sailors as slaves, all under the protection of the church. An international code stipulated the percentages of the spoils. The victor received 11%, the Grand Master 10%, all the way down to 1% designated to the nuns of St. Ursula. The order maintained a large fleet with a low overhead by having the captains bear the cost of running the ship. To maintain a galley cost 20,000 scudi, a huge sum in the 16th century, but the rewards were very high, and it was the quickest way to advance in the order. This policy also assured that every captain would attack as often as he could. When the Maltese were made aware of the great trade caravans sailing between Constantinople and Alexandria in the 1660s, 30 ships with 4,000 knights and soldiers plied Turkish waters, wreaking havoc and prompting a contemporary Turk to ask, "Is Malta more powerful than France?" The Corso was state piracy, designed to break the competitor's monopoly. The far-reaching effect of the Knights Corso was to shift the Ottoman trade into the hands of the European powers, thus accelerating the economic decline of the Ottomans. France, thanks to Malta, had acquired the Levantine trade, and Spain the North African trade. By this time, with a much weaker enemy to fight, the order's fleet grew slack and undisciplined. After the French conquest of Malta and the disappearance of the knights, the Barbary regencies gained strength, and under the pirate Yusuf Karamanli, operating out of Tripoli, started disrupting Mediterranean trade once again. In 1803, England, France, and even the United States were brought into battle with an enemy that the order had kept in check for 200 years. The primary task of the order was always the care of the poor and the sick. Blessed Gerard, the rector of the Amalfitan hostel in Jerusalem, had called for service in the name of Our Lord the Poor. The hospital, the largest in the world with 2,000 beds, provided services previously unheard of. Theodoric, a doctor from Salerno, wrote in 1172,
"No one can tell another how beautiful the hospital buildings are, how abundantly supplied with beds and rooms, how rich in refreshing the poor." And we saw that the beds numbered more than 1,000. Not even the most powerful king could maintain as many people as that house does in one day.
Medical sciences benefited from the famed school of Salerno near Amalfi, but Arabic influence was also felt, especially through the advanced Syrian schools, which introduced medicinal syrups to Europe. When Saladin conquered Jerusalem, he allowed the hospital to remain open for almost 1 year, in order to have the sick taken care of. Wherever they went, the Hospitallers were renowned caretakers. In Cyprus, at Lemissos. In Rhodes, in the Street of the Knights. And in Malta. They built hospitals of such comfort and luxury that many Europeans struggled to be admitted. A French patient reports, "They poured wine into silver goblets for each patient there, and the food was served on beautiful silver plates. The beds are like a little tent, soft and very fine." Besides luxury, this implied a knowledge of the antiseptic qualities of silver. Their involvement with warfare stimulated constant improvements of surgical procedures. The Maltese